Welcome to New York. That's right, Around the Wicket is coming to you from the United States, this T20 World Cup. We'll also cross to Barbados to check in with Aaron Finch and the Aussies. And we'll hear from Michael Clarke as we look ahead to the big one against England. Let's go Around the Wicket. Hello and welcome to New York. I'm Neroli Meadows, Lisa Sthalekar alongside me, and Aaron Finch is joining us from Barbados as well. This is Around the Wicket. Did you ever think we'd be doing a show from New York, Lisa?
No, I'm kind of pinching myself as I kind of approach the ESPN building, and look at the backdrop. This is great. I think we should stay here more often.
Loving every second of it. Aaron Finch is with us as well. Poor old Finchy, not quite a sunshiny day in Barbados. In fact, the match was abandoned between England and Scotland. Finchy, tell us, please, fingers crossed, the weather is better for tomorrow for the Aussies getting their campaign kick-started against Oman.
Yeah, it's been very wet and soggy over the last couple of days that I've been here in Barbados, but good news for Australian fans and cricket fans, I guess, that the weather is meant to clear tomorrow and there is a bit of a break over the next couple of days. So hopefully we see plenty more cricket.
Oh, let's keep our fingers crossed for that. Mitch Marsh, the skipper, of course, he's come in with a hamstring complaint, a bit of an injury cloud. What's the latest on him? What are you expecting from him, the new skipper?
I think he'll be fine. He'll bat. He's obviously said that he's not going to bowl in the early part of the tournament, but I don't think that will be a huge concern to Australia. They've got so many options with Stoinis, Maxwell, Tim David, Cameron Green to fill that all-rounder role. So there's enough bowling options there. And you combine that with a selection, whichever way they go, with the three quicks or if they play two spinners. So I don't think it'll be an issue at all at the start.
And Finchy, we heard Painey last week throw up a bit of a curveball. He said they absolutely have to pick Nathan Ellis and he would leave out either Pat Cummins or Josh Hazlewood, two of the absolute superstars in all three formats for Australia. What do you think about that call from Painey?
I think Tim might have had his Tasmania hat on at the same time as he was making that comment. It's pretty hard to go past the three that have got it done so many times in all three formats for Australia. I'd be surprised, having seen the wicket in the last couple of days here in Barbados, if Australia don't play two spinners, bringing Ashton Agar into the side and Glenn Maxwell along with Adam Zampa, the frontline spinner as well. So there's enough there. So in my opinion, I think that Pat Cummins and Mitchell Starc will play and Josh Hazlewood will miss out. They'll go with two spinners and then back the all-round of Maxwell, Stoinis to get the job done as a fifth bowler.
I don't mind the idea of Nathan Ellis potentially coming in at some point. I just think because of the wickets, you may not necessarily want the pace that we have in our fast bowling cartel, and he's quite clever with what he does. He's excellent at the death as well. So they may look to find a spot for him based on conditions and maybe opposition as well.
Do you like the idea of a couple of spinners?
Yeah, well, I mean,
I thought you might.
I mean, just throw the whole playing 11 and spinners, really. But look, I think because of the conditions, we already saw it turn in Guyana. I know, obviously, different surface, but West Indies tend to favour the spinners, and we've got two pretty good ones. When
you're starting with Oman, Finchy, what should the approach be? Because you've got the really tough game against England next, but then, you know, the likes of Scotland as well after that. What should the approach be? Do you pick your absolute best 11 for every game, or do you go the full squad mentality?
No, you pick your best 11 every game. You obviously compare that to conditions, but you can't afford to take any team lightly. We saw today the England side, they were on the back foot, and I think that they would have been well and truly under the pump against Scotland to chase down a total. So you can't afford to take any team lightly. You just need to pick your best 11 for the conditions, and that will mix and match depending on where you're playing. Obviously in Barbados here, then Antigua, St Lucia. So the conditions will change, but you can't afford to take World Cups for granted, especially against teams that they should tick off and win when you look at the draw. So you go all guns blazing from the start.
And just quietly, the Oman skipper has had some fighting words heading into this one. Lise, have a listen to this, Finchy, and I'll get your reaction off the back.
Yeah, I saw this come through. The Oman skipper said, with the Australian team, they used to have a few players with good techniques in the past, Steve Smith and Marnus Labuschagne, but I don't think they have many now. They look to hit big. they only try to go for sixes. So, he's labelled that they've got no technique, and they're a chance, Oman. And they did push Namibia, went to super over. So
Absolutely.
I don't mind that from the skipper. Just, hey, it's our first T20 World Cup. Who cares?
You reckon Marshy's going to be shaking in his boots, Finchy?
Well, if there was ever a wicket that they would love to turn up and play on, it'd be this one in Barbados. It's shown that it's slow, it's turning, it's inconsistent bounce as well. So that they played 2 games on the same wicket. But if you have a look at the whole square, it is so bare. There is not a blade of grass anywhere to be seen. So I think that the conditions will stay the same for all the matches here in Barbados, including the final. So they'll definitely fancy their chances, no doubt. If they can get into the Australian middle order early, you never know.
Oh, I like it. The skipper is putting the foot down. We'll wait and see what they come up with tomorrow. But as we wrap up just on the Aussies, Finchy, overall the group, as I mentioned, you've got Scotland, Oman, Namibia, along with England. It feels like absolute disaster would have to strike for Australia not to advance and take that seeded position into the next phase. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, absolutely. There's 3 very winnable games, and you should win them when you're looking at the draw. You're looking at world rankings, you're looking at experience, and then the game against England. I think that throws up a totally different kettle of fish. But at the same time, on surfaces that aren't pure batting wickets, you have to be really disciplined, and you just have to do your basics well. You can't afford to take anything for granted. And I think when you're looking at games that you should win, you're not thinking about anything else but the basics. And one thing to keep in mind is that points that you win and net run rate don't carry over into the next phase of the tournament. So it's just about getting a win any way that you can. And there'll be some scrappy games, no doubt, in this first stage of the T20 World Cup.
Don't go anywhere, Finchy, because we're going to chat about cricket in the US next. Michael Clarke is also coming up shortly for a discussion around England, who is the second game that Australia is playing. But cricket in the USA, if you can make it in New York, apparently you can make it anywhere. Aaron Jones, 94 not out of 40 balls, getting them home against Canada in a huge opening to this World Cup. Aaron Finch was there to watch it live. What did you make of that performance and the occasion altogether, Finchy?
It was a brilliant performance from Aaron Jones. He was scratchy at the start of his innings, and then he just started hitting them out of the park, I think 10 sixes. But the occasion was brilliant. There was a lot of excitement around the ground, and there was a lot of fans that had come to the game for the first time to watch cricket. So that's what it's all about, I think. And this was just an unbelievable display of hitting, particularly to the leg side. But it was going to be a big chase. We all sat there thinking that a target of 195 that Canada put on the board, it was going to be a record chase if the US were to get there. And they were clinical in the end.
What do you reckon about cricket in the US, Lise? It feels fun here in New York and Times Square. There's massive billboards. The South African team went out to Times Square today, and they put them up there in Times Square as well. What have you made about the colour around the city and cricket here in the country?
Yeah, I think it's got everyone talking. That's the main thing, right? And the fact that US put a great performance to start with, you hope that that's captivated a few more of the locals to follow the game. One thing I would love us to see maybe in the T20 franchise that's being played after, instead of meters that we talk about, go to yards. Kind of convert it to what these guys are used to, so they understand how big a hit is, and they can compare it to baseball in that term. So we've almost got to kind of maybe change the lingo. We used to call it 22 yards, the pitch.
Yeah.
I mean, we still do, yeah, but everything else is meters. So there's an opportunity, I think, for the game to absolutely grow here, but a few little tweaks along the way.
Finchy, you obviously played Major League Cricket last year with the Unicorns. You've had a great experience here in the US with cricket. Do you think it's got a future here as a big sport?
Yeah, I think it does. The fact that so many people are coming through the gates to watch for the first time is a real bonus, I think. There's always going to be the expat community, particularly the subcontinent community that have got the deep-rooted passion for the game. But the fact that there's new people coming through the gates, like you said, the Times Square billboards and the interest in it from the locals is such a good sign for the game. I think being a part of the MLC last year for me was unbelievable. So just the total interest in it and the comparisons that people make to baseball is really cool. And I'm looking forward to watching it grow over time.
From expats to Patrick Cummins, your old team, the Unicorns, he's just announced that he's signed today. That's huge news for the MLC to have a Cricket Australia current captain at the absolute top of his game sign on for the MLC.
Yeah, and it was 4 years, was it as well? Like, amazing. And it just shows you that a lot of the Aussie guys, because of probably the timing of the year, are deciding, okay, let's head to the US in July, and it's a really good chance for us to kind of do something that will leave a lasting legacy as well, because if they can get it up and running, who knows what will happen.
The pitch in New York, it's been a bit of a discussion point. Sri Lanka all out for 77 up against South Africa, the lowest ever total in a T20 international. What did you make of the pitch watching on from afar?
Not ideal, especially from a batting perspective. You want a true bounce, and the ball was moving around quite up and down as well. So I think the great thing is that there's already been a warm-up game. India scored 182 against Bangladesh. They've got 8 games to play in 10 days on that square. So I think they'll start to figure out which pitch is good, which one works well, and they're just going to have to rotate. And Damien Hoff, obviously the curator there from Adelaide Oval, he knows a thing or two about pitches, so I think it will be fine.
And how big is that game, India-Pakistan? We need that pitch to be brilliant, don't we, Finchy? How tough is it as a player walking out there when the conditions are a little you're not sure about?
Yeah, I mean, you're always worried if the ball is uncharacteristic bounce. And the thing, I think Sri Lanka batted very poorly, to be fair. Yes, there was a bit of bounce through the top and it was slightly inconsistent, but it wasn't to the level of a dangerous wicket by any stretch. I'd be very surprised if they don't go back to the warm-up wicket that India played on for their game, particularly for the game against Pakistan, because you want a true wicket, truer wicket. But I don't think that it's a bad thing when there's a bit of extra bounce or there's some sideways movement in a T20 game. So, I think Sri Lanka were just caught out there by a much better team in South Africa.
And Nortje Rabada absolutely firing. Bartman on World Cup debut. Could this be the year with the batting firepower that they've got and those quicks up and running that they could actually hold the World Cup trophy aloft? And do you think that the curse, the choking tag, is real and fair?
Yeah, I think it is real because they talk about it themselves. So that just tells you automatically that there is some issue there. I mean, a lot of these players wouldn't have been alive when the choking tag started. So I don't understand how it can be so deep-rooted in a culture like South Africa, because they're all confident players. You're
just losing there, Finchy, for a moment. But
South Africa, I mean, they're so confident in their own ability. So they've got a wonderful side. They've got a wonderful side, and they could be the team to beat in this World Cup because they've got a lot of bases covered. You look at the quicks, you look at the players against spin, players at fast bowling. They've got a lot of bases covered. They made it to the World Cup semi-final in the ODI format. So it's a matter of time before they do get over the line, though.
And then Group C, you've got New Zealand, West Indies, Afghanistan, Uganda and PNG. Now, PNG actually pushed the West Indies. There were a few real hairy moments for the hosts. How terrifying is it to have Afghanistan as the unseeded team in your group? We saw what they did to Uganda last night, absolutely crushed them.
Yeah, and when you look at their side and the amount of spinners, quality spinners, and then from a batting perspective as well, they've got depth. They are certainly a side that is going to cause a few headaches along the way. No doubt the home or co-host, West Indies, had a nervy start against Papua New Guinea. I'm hoping that will settle and away they go. But when you're coming up against an Afghanistan side that's firing, it's not a team you want to meet in this group stage. And with only 2 teams going through, someone's going to have to miss out.
New Zealand, West Indies, Afghanistan, all in the same group. Just to wrap up with you, Finchy, we know we're having a little bit of an issue with the connection to Barbados, but the tournament structure, the first time 20 teams and the first time that we've got those test-playing nations, playing against the likes of Uganda. Are you liking it? Are you enjoying it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that's a way to grow the game as well. There's not a huge amount of opportunity in the schedule for associate nations to get the opportunity to play against the test-playing nations. So I think it's only good for the game. Yes, that'll create some one-sided games at some point throughout the tournament, but it's still good for the game. And if it can help grow the game in associate countries and I guess regions for teams to aspire to make a World Cup, then it's done the job.
Aaron Finch, you have done the job beautifully on Around the Wicket. We really appreciate you joining us. We know you've got a really busy schedule, but all the best in the coverage for Australia against Oman tomorrow.
I'll see you guys in New York soon.
Looking forward to it, Finchy. It's going to be fun. Don't go anywhere on Around the Wicket because Michael Clarke, former Aussie skipper, is going to join us next. We're going to look ahead to the Aussie second game, the big one, up against England. Welcome back to Around the Wicket. Michael Clarke, former Aussie skipper, joins us now. Pup, it's been a big, long build-up, but we finally made it. The Aussies kick off their World Cup campaign against Oman tomorrow. Aaron Finch has already been on saying he thinks they should go with the two spinners in the conditions in Barbados. What do you think?
Interesting one. I guess this is probably the conversation we've had in and around the Australian squad. The fact that they've got two legitimate spinners in Zampa and Agar, but they've also got Travis Head and Glenn Maxwell as options as well. So, look, I think they'll pick on conditions, but personally, I think they'll start against Oman. I think they'll start with three quicks. I think they'll go Stark, Hazelwood, Cummins. Hazelwood's got himself into form quickly. Stark's been on fire at the back end of the IPL, and Paddy Cummins had a great IPL. So I think they'll stick with those three against Oman in Barbados.
England had a washout today against Scotland. They were in a spot of bother early days. They face Australia on June 9 Aussie time. How much pressure is on England's shoulders given their poor performance in the ODI World Cup last year?
I think there's pressure because they won the last T20 World Cup as well. So there's an expectation. I think they've got a good team. I think they've got wonderful players. Josh Butler is a star. Jofra Archer coming back into that team, I think, has a massive influence as well. They've got a number of good players. So, yeah, look, I think they'll be expecting to qualify. There's no doubt about it. And they'll under the pump against Scotland as well. I know that wicket's good. Boundaries are quite small in Barbados, but none for 90 after 10. Scotland was in an unreal position. So, yeah, look, I think there's pressure on a number of teams, and this format brings everyone a bit closer together. The other team that I reckon we've got to keep an eye on is Afghanistan. They're off to a good start, but they've just got match winners in that team. So, it's not a given for Australia or England or any team to just walk through and qualify. You've got to be at your best.
I think also we're talking about pressure that England will face is their performances in the white ball leading up to this tournament, but also their red ball, the test side, hasn't quite hit the marks, even though they're revolutionising test cricket. I think there's a lot of pressure on the coaching staff of both the red and white ball, but also Rob Keys as well. So people will be watching, and like the Australian side, there is always an expectation that England should be in the finals.
I saw Rob Key keeping a close eye on the action today. You know Matthew Mott really well, Lise. Do you think he's under the pump if they don't perform well at this World Cup?
Yeah, I think he would be. He certainly felt it in India in the 50-over World Cup. I asked him and sent him some messages throughout the tournament. How is he going? He goes, "What do you expect?" And I went, "Okay, fair enough."
Welcome to coaching, Lise.
Exactly. That's why we don't do it, right, Clarky?
That's why you're sitting up here with me. I pick you guys every week, don't you worry.
But I certainly think that he's aware of what he needs to do in order to kind of keep his contract going as well.
You mentioned the names of Jofra Archer, also Wood bowling absolute fire, but Jofra, it's a special occasion for him because he's a Barbados boy who was playing club cricket there in the build-up to this one as well. How fearful should the Aussies be of facing an up-and-about Jofra Archer as well as Wood bowling 150-plus, Pup?
Yeah, it's a good attack, and I like that high speed. I think that's going to be significant. If the pitches are a little bit slow, I think speed through the air is going to be important. If there's any sort of swing, then those two can both do that as well. A little bit like the Aussie attack, that Stark, Hazelwood, Cummins, that speed through the air is going to be important. But that adds to expectation and pressure. Joffre's just coming back from that elbow. But I think his focus is the shortest format of the game. I think if he's not 100% fit, then he'll walk away from Test cricket. I know he doesn't want to, but that'll be his first walk away from one format, because I think T20, he knows he can play that for as long as he wants, only bowling 4 overs. So he'll want to start well coming back into this England team. And England, like I said, that expectation, Lee's just mentioned it, Australia and England, and a lot of the teams, but particularly those two, when you've got a 99% fully fit squad to choose from, you expect to make the quarterfinals worst case scenario. And in our draw, in our group, Australia and England will be expecting to qualify.
Just to reiterate as well, as Lisa said earlier, it's 4 groups of 5 teams. The top 2 go through to the Super 8 phase, and then it goes on from there. Just the fact that he's going back to Barbados, Lisa, when you went back to India and played there, was it a special sense of occasion for you, I guess?
Yeah, there is, because you kind of go back to your roots, and he spent a lot of time. And looking at the ground, actually, that he played that game in Barbados is actually the same ground that Hayley Matthews played all of her cricket. So he would have felt very comfortable, a sense of emotion as well. So even though he'll be wearing an England jersey, there'll be a sense of pride when he kind of walks out there and be able to play a home World Cup.
It's a great little side story for this World Cup. Pup, just on the selection story, Nathan Ellis, Tim Payne last week on Around the Wicket, as you heard, said that he would be picking Ellis. Now, he is the only quick in this Aussie fold that has a great record against the in-form Jos Buttler. He's got him 2 times, only 10 runs coming off of it. So an average of 5 strike rate that's right down there. Does that maybe lead you to pick Nathan Ellis and go with what Tim Payne was thinking for England?
Yeah, I understand what Payne was saying. I really do. I don't know if they'll make that call going into a World Cup. Don't get me wrong. I think after this World Cup, the opportunities for a number of new players to come into this Australian setup, I think it's a given. I think it'll happen. Jake Fraser-McGurk is another one, right? I just think right now, to start your World Cup campaign, Mitch Marsh, new captain, I think he'll go with the experience of those 3 fast bowlers if they go with 3 quicks. I don't necessarily think it'll be a quick for quick. I think he'll go those 3. Otherwise, they'll drop one of them and go the extra spinner. I think that's probably going to be the way they'll start the tournament. But this is the problem that you want for selectors. You want to have options there. If somebody pulls up injured, somebody gets sick, you've only got 15 men in that World Cup squad. You want everyone ready to go. So I'd be surprised. There is a chance, but I reckon they'll go with the 3 experienced boys to start.
Obviously, statistics and analysis has grown and grown in the game. But when you were skipper, did you look at those matchups? Did you really hone in on those and maybe go, well, okay, maybe we select him then?
I did. I think it's an important part of our game, the use of technology to be able to find out everything you can about your opposition, whether it be the team, individual players, and certainly as captain, you're looking at how to bowl to guys, field placements, when to use certain guys and those individual matchups. But it's not the be all and end all. Again, the other thing, the matchups are not at international cricket. And that's no disrespect to any domestic tournament. It's not the same as playing for your country. Playing, in a World Cup is very different to playing the BBL or the IPL or whatever you call all these other tournaments, They're domestic tournaments. So, I think Australia will look at, if we're fully fit, if we're playing our best cricket, what's our best 11 for the conditions against that opposition? And we go with that. And again, it's really hard to look at Josh Hazlewood, Mitchell Starc and Pat Cummins and find a weakling. They've all been brilliant over a long period of time now. So I'd imagine it'd be hard to split those 3 up, certainly at the start of the tournament.
Pup, some fun stuff from England to finish off. Kumar Sangakkara, the ripe old age of 46, has walked out for a 3rd Division Dorset Cricket League team. He made 68 off 50.
Tell me you got a double 100.
And he took 1 for 32, if you don't mind, the former wicket keeper.
he's bowling
the man
as well.
who finally got his wicket, though, John Burns, bowled Kumar Sangakkara. You'd be pretty happy with that in your back pocket as just a clubby out there. Have you ever thought about just getting back out there in Western Sydney and walking out to a fifth, basically, division team?
Smart man. Well done.
Never again. My back is not hitting one more cover drive, let me tell you. But Kumar's a legend. You know, I think that's awesome for the team he's playing with and the team he's playing against. And you know what? Some guys love it. Some people want to keep playing. You know, whether it's charity games or these days, there's so many of those legend competitions where past players, retired players get the opportunity to go and play. So if you love that, why not? But imagine the guy that got Kumar out. I'd be putting the scorecard on my wall in my bedroom. I'd have it framed, mate. We couldn't get Kumar Sangakkara out. No one could. So for the youngster that got him, good on you.
Just never mind saying that he's 46 years of age. Also, a local side in England got beaten off one legitimate ball. Wedgwood scored just 8 runs, then Checkley chased it down first ball thanks to a no-ball 4, followed by a 4,
Wow.
9 off 1, game over. Gotta love local cricket.
Wow.
Michael Clarke, thank you so much for your time and Around the Wicket.
Thank you, guys.
Don't go anywhere after this. We're taking on the short stuff.
Mine was pretty good compared to others. I think just one bag lost, my cricket bag, but I didn't miss a training session, so it came the next day, which I'm pretty thankful for. I think mine was about 38 hours, where I think Starkey and stuff are about 60, so I think I'm overall pretty happy with my trip over.
Hasn't been the smoothest trip for the Aussies. This is the short stuff. Ever lost your gear on the way to a tour?
No, and I haven't misplaced my baggy green either. But I'd challenge Mitch Stark. I think the Australian team might have gone a little bit over 60 hours.
How many days did it take you?
Yeah, it felt like 3.
What's been your favourite part of the tournament so far?
The super over.
Biggest
Oman.
upset in the next few days?
Netherlands beating South Africa.
See you next time.